But I'm very excited for my first guest to announce Steve Cunningham, who is the owner of Sensus Fidelium, a YouTube channel, and sensusfideliumpress.com. Sensusfidelium.tv is available on Apple and Android apps. He is based in North Carolina, and so he is a good person to speak to about the craziness that's happening in Charlotte. Steve, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm well, Father. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Not at all. This caught my attention because I couldn't believe how extreme this was. So let's give a little bit of backstory for people who are unfamiliar. Within the Catholic Church, obviously everyone knows that the main service of the day or of the week is the Mass, right? But there are two forms of the Mass well, I mean, there are many forms of the Mass, but generally speaking, in the West, in the Latin side of the Church, there are two forms. The extraordinary form, which is what was up until 50 years ago, the Mass throughout the whole of human history, up until Vatican II. And then there's the ordinary form, which is the Novus Ordo, as they call it, the new Mass, the new order. And this is a modernized version of what the Mass was. Now, there are many reasons and many debates about why there needed to be a new rite, a new Mass, but many people say it's because people needed to hear the Mass in the vernacular. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, Pius the Tenth even was bringing it up, and before him, just because you had your English background, our first bishop, Bishop Carroll, wanted the Mass in the vernacular. So he was. This goes back 200, 300 years on that point. But yeah, the spirit of Vatican II, because Sacrosanctum Concilium never brings that up.
Which is
But
interesting because many people look at Pope John Paul II as a saint, and he is, of course, canonized as a saint. But what I mean is people look at him as a saintly pope. But of course, he was behind much of this. He was the head of state when this came into play. This great shift from tradition to modernity, and that has followed through with Pope Benedict, again, another pope that people see as a good pope. However, he did push through this move away from tradition towards modernity. And then, of course, we got to Pope Francis with Traditionis Custodes, who actually pretty much subjugated the traditionalist faithful and said, no, going forward now, we need unity in the church, and unity means you will all obey and use the new rite. You will no longer use the old Mass. Again, is that a fair summary of where we are?
as a friends might call it, the jailers of tradition. But yes, it's like the beatings will continue till unity is there.
I love this idea that in order to unify everyone, you have to do away with 2,000 years of church history. But we know that the traditional Latin Mass, as many people call it, the Tridentine, the Extraordinary Form, we know that this is how the church has always celebrated the Mass. We can trace the Gregorian canon, which was standardized or codified by Pope St. Gregory the Great, but it was used even before him, but he standardized it. We know that has been used pretty much since the 300s, right? Since the 4th century. And so that's a long, long time in history. We know most of the Mass as we know it was used for hundreds of years, and it was codified by Pope Pius V, I believe, was it 1570, who said, look, we need to have one standard Mass that everyone follows. So there has been a pattern of this in the church, saying, yes, we need a standard uniform Mass. However, the last time it was done, they said, let's look at what's always been followed. Let's look at what's always been done and unify people around that. And they said at the time, I believe, if you celebrate a Mass that's been in practice for over 200 years that isn't this, you're welcome to continue to do that. But we want the whole church to be celebrating the Latin Mass, following the Gregorian canon, the Roman canon, as everyone has been doing since the church was founded. Now, fast forward to Vatican II, and they want to turn the Mass into the vernacular. They didn't just change it from Latin to English. They removed chunks of the Mass. They changed everything around. And give me a brief summary of some of the major changes that have affected Catholics, or still are affecting Catholics today, from the changes from the Latin Mass to the new Mass.
In the way you can change the Mass, you can change everything. The original change was the divine office, which they were going out could never be changed, and then that opened up that put the camel's nose on the proverbial tent in a sense. And all right, well, can you change the Mass? You change the Mass, then you can change morality. And that's why you see this in the last 40, 50 years. You've been reporting on this too, as well, on all kinds of things, gay marriage, abortion. I think there's no unity in any morality anymore. People are just making things up as they go almost. But yeah, there's no the uniformity of all that is saying, you go to a traditional mass and you're to your right, there might be somebody from Korea family. There might be someone from Mexico and family. There might be someone from Vietnam. Everyone's united in this one una voce, one language, one thing. And after about 5 times going to mass, it's not hard to figure out what Dominus Vobiscum is. It's not like it's, you need some kind of
It's
watch
some
from the
spiritual
Vatican.
tool, right? That's a good point. So it's not difficult to figure out, but I would push back on even that and say the lay faithful don't have to figure it out. The
Yeah.
masses in the pews don't have to figure out what is being said and why, because even if it's in the vernacular, it's very difficult to comprehend because the priest's job in the mass is to be in the person of Christ, is to bring Calvary to the people, to take the people up to heaven. It's a supernatural event that is occurring. So it is difficult for any of us to comprehend. And so this modern idea that it needs to be participatory and understandable, relatable, is very foreign to the teaching of the church for 2,000 years. And that's affected not just the liturgy, but also, we'll get to later, the theology. So bringing this to Charlotte, there was a letter that was released that pretty much said we're going to push forward with what Pope Francis put into play. Here we have the first tweet that I wanted to display today is by Michael Haynes, a good reporter, a good Catholic reporter. He's always on top of these stories. It says, just in, Bishop Martin of Charlotte pens new liturgy rules condemning many aspects, including any traditional vestments, vesting prayers, altar rails, kneeling for communion, and saying that Latin fosters unacceptable ideas. Now, let's run through these first of all. So, any traditional vestments. Well, I'll get to the document later, but any traditional vestments. So, he doesn't want you to look like you've got any tradition. Doesn't want you to look like you're adhering to 2,000 years of church teaching. Vesting prayers. I take particular issue with this because priests pray the vesting prayers in private in the vestry before they go out. So no one sees this. This is not about appearances. This is about faith. The priest is praying certain prayers, which we'll get to. This is important. He's banning faith to some degree. Altar rails. Okay, so if you're going to receive communion, an altar rail is helpful because you're kneeling down to receive on the tongue, which again is the tradition of the church. Removing the altar rails signifies you can no longer kneel, which signifies you can no longer receive on the tongue, which means that it's all this dishing out of communion in the hand, which
Come get your
loses.
bread.
Go on.
Come get your bread.
Well, indeed, loses reverence, and the Catholic Church instituted these things called extraordinary Eucharistic ministers relatively recently as well, which means that forget the fact that a priest's hands are consecrated for the purposes of administering the sacrament, blessed with oil by the bishop and wrapped in a maniturgium. Forget that. Let's get little Sue to come up and dish out the blessed sacrament. Let's get her to do it instead. Anyway, don't get me started. And saying Latin fosters unacceptable ideas. The idea being that sacred tradition cannot be undermined. When this letter hit, how did that affect you in your parish?
We knew about this for months and months and months ago, almost probably about 5 to 6 months ago. Conor Gallagher of 10 Books, he did a show with Father Prius back in February where every question, you watch that, every question is because of what was going on here. Friends of mine that were at the cathedral, we were texting back and forth back in December, and he was telling me, a guy named Jason Murphy with the Martyrs Walk, he was telling me, hey, he's going after the rails. He stopped it at here. He stopped this. He stopped this. He stopped that. He's attacking this. St. Mark's up in Huntersville, one of the bigger parishes. This is February. I've been sharing their bulletin. Uh, he banned it. Now, this is not a traditional parish, mind you. They've never had a Sunday TLM. They've had a Friday one for a few years, and then TC took it out. But for 12 years or so, they've been receiving at the rail. And Bishop Martin shows up and says, "We're not doing that now." People were out. People were upset. I mean, this is just regular Joe, mom and pop over at the in Huntersville, North Carolina. This isn't guys that are traveling over, looking at Arate, looking at all these other. Look at my channel, maybe. They're just regular people that just love going and bailing and receive on the tongue, or kneeling at the rail, etc. Was I mean, the things that were going on. I mean, when we saw this, we didn't know the extent of it, like the banning. I mean, he was going after banning altar boys from wearing gloves. I mean, banning the bell from announcing the mass going. This was the list. Now it says it's gotten tabled, but in a sense, we were happy this came out because it showed what we were talking about for months. That hey guys, we got some troubles here. We got someone's been micromanaging, someone is trying to make the diocese in his image and likeness, still using Pope Francis like the ghost of Pope Francis is like some as one article said, like a vampire coming around trying to suck the blood out of everybody. And in a sense, going, dude, not saying dude, Your Excellency, own up to this. Kind of like I'm a Jocko Willink fan. Like, hey, extreme ownership. Stop blaming someone else who's now dead for your mistake or your wantings. Even though this wish list of his was a few months ago, man up. Say this is what I want because he's the one that traveled to all these parishes. Like one was if you're a female veiling as a lector, that shouldn't be done anymore. I know for a fact that happens down the street from where I'm at, and there's no. I mean, that little young old lady that put a veil on got you upset. I mean, the things that were going on is like you said, the
Wait,
Aladdin is unacceptable. Well, this video of Leo chanting the Pater Noster Aladdin and leading everyone to
right.
Gloria. So
We'll
your
get to that as
boss
well.
doesn't seem to mind.
Just I missed a bit there. Did you say women are not allowed to veil whilst reading from the lectern?
Yes, that's in that wish list of
Why are
his. That's
women
one.
reading from the lectern?
They're allowed to go up. They're just not allowed to have a veil on.
Women shouldn't be in the sanctuary at
Oh,
all.
no, I'm agreeing. I'm with you.
Oh
I'm
my
with you on that.
goodness.
It's just the
It's like it's all upside down. It's inverted. I
yeah.
have some theories as to why this is happening. But if we scroll down, please, Samson, we can see a copy of the one of the letters here, and he's referencing Pope Francis. And this is a letter that was dated May the 23rd, 2025. There's a new pope. It's not Pope Francis. So this is clinging to the old regime, clinging to the old administration here for authority, it seems. It seems that this Bishop Martin has a dictatorial, tyrannous streak in him, which I won't speculate as to why, but he's leaning on the previous guy who also had one of these to give him some authority to push through his agenda, it seems, which is monstrous. To be so micromanaging and petty to say the altar servers cannot wear gloves. Like that's not even a theological or liturgical reason thing. That's just protecting the glossy metals that we're holding all the time and getting fingerprints everywhere. That's a pragmatic thing. But most of these things are liturgical and theological, such as kneeling and receiving on the tongue. And bells, a bell to announce the mass. We all know that the devil hates bells. Why would anyone want to ban bells unless they don't want to upset the devil? I mean, the speculation writes itself. But you rebelled. So on this next tweet, this is one of yours. This is one that caught my attention. Over a decade, the parish has been using the rails. New bishop enters and demands a stop to it. People were upset. I don't know how many knelt anyways. I would have gone to the rail and waited, but at least this kid had the courage to drop down. And that is courage because I've been in these Catholic churches where they line up in a row on the way up to receive. It's all very modern and foreign, but it's the peer pressure. Like nobody wants to stand out, and so nobody's going to kneel because that would make you look silly amongst a line of people standing. And also, you don't want to slow the person behind you down, forgetting for a moment that there's no time in the mass. Time is irrelevant, and also it's about reverence. So yes, kneel and receive on the tongue. Don't receive in the hand. But courage to that. Kudos to that courageous young boy who did that. Now, have you heard from any parishes that are continuing to just go to the rail? I would love to see people who just walk up to the rail, kneel down and wait, even though the priest or the Eucharistic minister is just stood in the nave waiting to dish it out.
Well, that photo is from that St. Mark's when I was telling you about
I
where the
see.
bishop came in. So that's the thing. And a couple weeks before that Father Prius thing in the video, Father Prius goes, "Just go to the rail." Yeah.
Absolutely.
He goes, "What is they going to do? Not give you communion?" And the priest mindset here, I guarantee they are not for. Obviously, 100% without a question. I bet that anything I could think of, none of the priests are for banning the rail and things like this. Some reason this is his force. The Benedictine abbot here was actually mentioned that he goes, yes, it's tabled. We're not letting him do a lot of this stuff, but I think his words was like he's like focused on the altar rail for some reason to get rid of it. Uh, Now, since then, or since now, the parishes are still doing what we've been doing for the last 10, 15, 10, years, whatever. At the rail, you're the outlier if you're standing on the tongue. I mean, this is Novus Ordo parishes. This, this isn't like we're just a TLM only diocese. There is, they say, unicorn masses. Most of these parishes are what you would call unicorn masses. Everyone's at the rail. Everyone's receiving on the tongue. There's chant in the from the choir. The fiddleback. He went after the fiddleback for the vestments. Like that's a cathedral. The cathedral, I know for a fact that he wears it at that because they're solid. These guys here are as solid as they come. The seminary was created. They went out to figure out how to work the seminary by going to the fraternity. The seminary is ran by pre-55 guys. People were reaching out to me going about this article, going, "Is this true about how cool your diocese is?" That's why I said I'm glad that came out because it showed how he is, and it showed how great this area is at the same time.
Thank you for watching my Common Sense Crusade. If you'd like to watch the whole show, you can subscribe to lotuseaters.com for as little as £5 per month, and then you get access to a bank of content as well. My show is 3 p.m. every Thursday. See you there. Deus Vult.